This is a podcast about the power of lived experiences, about how stories can shape more human-centered systems, spaces, and services.
Each episode, we sit down with people who are challenging the status quo, leading with empathy, and helping others through their work and their stories.
We're Farah and Megan, and this is Collected by Unimco.
Today on Collected, we're here with Robby Spring, who is a patient advocate and who has been very open in sharing her journey with cancer. She has a lot of passion to help other patients going through similar journeys, especially young women who've gone through hormonal cancers. So welcome, Robby. We're really happy to have you here today, and we really appreciate you opening up and sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, we thought we'll just hand the mic over to you right now to just kind of share a little bit about yourself, what your background looked like before you got into patient advocacy. I know that you have a lot of experience in the healthcare space before you had your cancer diagnosis. So kind of just take us through your journey.
Yes. So I always had a health and life science background. I have an undergrad in medical biophysics. I was obsessed with MRI machines, had to learn everything about them. Then I moved into my first master's, which was in neuroscience field, so studying functional MRI here in Toronto at a hospital, but at U of T. And then after I finished that master's, I worked in that same lab for a while as a lab manager, managing big neuroinformatics projects and kind of running a lab like a business in a way. It was really cool doing a lot of clinical research. During that time, I went back for a second master's in translational research, looking at how to really adopt health innovations in our publicly funded healthcare ecosystem, because for med devices and digital health, it's not very clear like it is for pharma. Of course, as we know, there's challenges with pharma too.
Right.
After I finished that, I ended up going to work in government for the Danish government, actually helping bring health and life science companies to Canada and doing a lot of work with Danish pharma companies on the kind of government relations side, and a little bit of diplomacy and trade, which was really cool.
Let's go. Wait, why did you get into the Danish government with this?
Yeah, so I was always obsessed with Denmark.
Okay.
I wrote papers on the Danish healthcare system, which is amazing, and they have a universal health record, and that's like very cool. And they've been doing that for a gajillion years because Denmark thinks ahead and has really strong technical ability to be able to implement that, and it's just been working quite well. Like everything's linked through one number across like the entire social system there.
Wow.
So I actually used to have an antique jewelry business. And through the antique jewelry business, I had someone that was buying jewelry. She had a friend doing that job at the Danish government. My friend Carrie, I think you guys have met her before. You have met her.
Yes.
And so her and I met, got along, and then 6 months later, she was hiring a colleague. And
Oh, cool.
it was exactly what that second master's was, because I was using that knowledge of the research I did as part of my capstone project to apply to Danish health and life science companies, and then actually doing a lot of work in the health data space, which I had knowledge on. And Denmark's really cool because they're a small country, do a lot of work, so they rely heavily on exports. And so around their consulates and embassies around the world, they hire trade advisors to be able to help with exports and help their either Danish companies get into local countries, or help subsidiaries of their big pharma companies, and they have a few big ones, to be able to do more work in local markets as well. So it's a very cool system, and so that's how I got into it as a Canadian working for a foreign country.
Cool. Sorry, side note there. I was like,
Yeah.
to know this.
Yes. So then was there for 3.5 years, loved it, ended up moving into biotech as a chief of staff for a little bit, and then I got sick. I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and my sister and I had breast cancer at the time, and our mom had it a few years prior.
And you were 35.
I was 35, yes. My sister was 43, and mine was only found because of my sister's, and my sister's was only found because our mom had it. But we didn't have any of the known genetic variants like BRCA. It looks like there might be one that's come up recently that maybe we have, but it's not such a clear cut like BRCA1 and BRCA2 are. And really known genetic variants only count for 9 to 10% of breast cancers. And so while there's a heavy focus on that, like obviously we have some sort of genetic linkage because the three of us had it. We just don't know really what that gene is quite yet. And at this point for us in our journey, like in my opinion, it doesn't matter because we already had it.
Yeah.
So we know the predispositions there. So having then worked across, academia and hospital and government and industry, that experience of being a patient reshaped my view of the healthcare system and led me to want to bridge the gap because navigating the system should have been easy for someone like me.
Right.
And it was extremely difficult. And I was thinking the entire time, if this is what it's like for someone who is privileged, has access, has knowledge, what is it like for most Canadians? Which is how I started my advocacy journey.
Amazing. Okay, I just want to step back quickly. When you got the diagnosis, was it yourself that advocated to get testing done, or was your doctor like, hey, maybe you should get a test?
So when my sister was diagnosed, she was told I could get referred into high-risk screening. So I got a referral for that, and I was in the process of waiting a couple months just to speak to a genetic counselor.
Okay.
But my sister and I are technically half-sisters, but we are half-sisters through our mom. But because of that, I was told that I might not actually be eligible for high-risk screening after speaking to the genetic counselor because they calculate your risk and they decide whether you get supplementary screening or not. When my sister was first diagnosed, it appeared that it was caught early, even though actually she had a 3-centimeter tumor and a couple other spots. And in 12 months prior, because she was in a short-term high-risk screening program, 12 months prior, she was completely clear. So it was a bit weird, but she was told it would probably be an earlier stage. But then after her lumpectomy, we found out that she was actually stage 2. It had spread to her lymph nodes, and she was going to go through the process of chemo and radiation and, more intense treatment than what my mom went through. At that point, I was waiting for this genetic counselor appointment, and I was like, well, this is crazy.
Yeah.
My mom had it. My sister had it. I just want to get screened. That's all I want. And so I called my family doctor, and I said, hey, do you mind sending me for screening? My sister's cancer actually spread, and I know you sent the referral in for high-risk screening, but, I don't want to wait. I don't know why I had to I just had this feeling.
Yeah,
It was
like
I don't want to wait. Please get me screened. So I went in for a mammogram and an ultrasound. This was May 2023, and they found and the mammogram was clear, but, younger women often do have denser breasts, and I knew my sister had dense breasts already. And so then right after the mammogram, I went in for an ultrasound. They found a 1.5 centimeter tumor that I did not feel. And so got a biopsy, and it was also breast cancer. And so I was then facing that at the same time as my sister.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I had to advocate, obviously, and thank goodness I did, because even if I got screened by the genetic counselor, by the time they calculated my risk and sent me in for screening, let's say that process took another 6 months.
Yeah.
I found out later I had a very aggressive subtype of breast cancer. And so it actually could have spread because I already had multiple spots. I had the 1.5 centimeter tumor, but I had multiple spots in my right breast, and something they were tracking on the left side as well.
Wow. Wild.
Robby, you were talking a few minutes ago about navigating the healthcare system and how challenging you found it, especially given your background and your educational experience.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people talk about our healthcare system being really complex to navigate, and wondering if you can really dive into, what are the specific parts of the healthcare system that you found hard to get through. I know you just now talked about your screening experience and your diagnostic experience. What are some of the other things that you just found challenging? I mean, when you got the diagnosis, what were you going through in that moment? And then did you know what steps to take? Were those clear to you?
Those are really good questions. From the time my biopsy results came back to the time I received my first line of treatment was 11 weeks. which was way too long. And so that 11-week period required a lot more imaging. I had to get more biopsies. They couldn't do the biopsies by ultrasound. I had to go into the MRI for biopsies. I had then found out I needed the mastectomy on my right side, which meant I chose a double. I had to freeze my eggs because I hadn't had kids, and, I wanted the option knowing that I might have to receive more intense treatment that would impact my fertility choices. 11 weeks is too long with my type of breast cancer, which was luminal B. So it was hormone positive, HER2 negative, which could be either luminal A and luminal B. So luminal A is typically less aggressive. Luminal B is more aggressive. But they don't test for that until you go into genomic testing, and not everybody has access to genomic testing, which is something we can talk about later, but that I'm very passionate about. And so that period of time required a lot of pushing, and there was a lot of uncertainty. And in general, for somebody like me that was on the borderline of every treatment decision, it was like a choose your own adventure. So I was calling and speaking to as many people as I could. And during that period, it was awful because I didn't know what was going on. So I didn't even really want to talk about it because I couldn't answer questions. And it just made me anxious because my friends were like, hey, this or that. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And so I talked about it with, close people, but as minimally as possible because I really didn't know. And at a certain point, my mom looked at me and she said, your full-time job right now is to find out as much information about every treatment decision as you possibly can. Speak to as many people as you can. So when you're in those appointments, you can make an informed decision about what the right pathway is for you. And so every appointment was battle for me. I came with these if-then statements because getting an appointment took so long. So if you didn't really make decisions on the spots when they were presented to you, you'd be faced with other wait times. And so I wanted to get treated, right? I knew throughout that whole time I had cancer growing inside of me. And until it was taken out or until I received some type of treatment, it was going to continue to grow. So if I didn't push as much as I could, the wait time would have been even longer potentially, which is unfathomable.
Yeah.
It's absolutely difficult.
And sorry to interrupt, but you pushed, and if there's lots of people who don't push, they just wait on their healthcare professionals to tell them okay, this is what you need to do. There's not that urgency from them all the time.
Yeah.
So if some people don't push, then it can get way more ahead. And so yes,
exactly.
That's great that you're doing that, and also pushing others to advocate for themselves and push them to push for better care.
Exactly.
Faster care.
And so the type of surgery I ended up needing, a mastectomy, I wanted reconstruction as a young single woman, and outcomes are shown to be better if you get immediate reconstruction. Okay. But what that means is that your oncology surgeon and your plastic surgeon have to have time together, and you have to have an OR room basically for 7 hours.
Wow.
And the outcomes are better if you do it immediately versus, delay it.
Right.
And so I knew I needed the mastectomy. I knew I wanted reconstruction. I knew I wanted the double because they were already tracking something in the left. And I was like, why am I going to... Didn't make a difference. Am I already going out and understory? I'm like, I might as well have the match.
And
equally, equally,
plenty.
So, that process of also getting the two surgeons to line up and getting your appointment to map out the surgery, they also have to both be there together. That took time. And that also, was a process of pushing at the same time, knowing that the study showed the outcomes are better. Of course, that's what I wanted.
Mm-hmm. I think you said something that was really interesting, which is you did all of this upfront work prior to going into your appointments so that you could make decisions in the moment when you were sitting in those conversations with your healthcare providers.
Yeah.
And the difference it sounds like that made versus having the options presented to you in the moment, going home to reflect and have conversations about it, then doing the research, and then going back and making a decision. And I think that's such an important distinction because a lot of times when you don't know what kinds of decisions you have to make, you're often not prepared for the decision when it's put in front of you.
Exactly. And like intuitively, you kind of know what feels right.
Right.
Because I was presented with so many different options and so many inflection points where like my life was literally in my hands. Um, I was making decisions based on like what would allow me to sleep at night. What is the decision that I could make that would make me feel confident that God forbid the cancer came back in the future. God forbid something happened, that I was like, I made the right decision for me at the time and I couldn't have done anything differently.
Yeah.
And I do feel confident in all the choices I've made, but even still, like 2.5 years out, like I still have tons of decisions to make. I'm still in adjunct therapy. I'm still faced with kind of all these medications and survivorship issues that require me to make treatment decisions that could impact, the percent likelihood of a recurrence.
Right.
And so I still spend a lot of time speaking to people and understanding what's right for me, but also understanding that the meds and the drugs that I'm on, like, do impact my quality of life. And so what is the balance of being able to work and to think and to sleep and all these factors that are impacted by adjunct therapy, but also could impact, my future of a recurrence rate. So it's a challenging world.
Yeah. I mean, hearing you describe this to us now, it sounds so empowering, right? You sound like you are empowered, not only in your everyday life when you think about your therapy that you're currently on, but just hearing you talk about your life being in your hands, you being accountable for the decisions, you reflecting on, did I make the right decision, feeling like you made the right decision. I'm curious about, in the moment when you were doing the research, like your mom suggested, turning it into essentially your full-time job, did it feel empowering to you then?
Once I started, it did. And I think it's like, it's also part of the same reason of getting into advocacy. Like, this is a really horrible thing that's going on. And so instead of being a victim and blaming, because of course there's a million bad things that happened and like, it is unfair at times, but I could look at it that way, or I could try to find some type of silver lining. So it did feel like I had more control when I was doing those things. I'm not sure, like, empowered's the word either, because it's still really scary.
Right.
But it makes me feel like I'm a little bit more in control and things are in my hand, and I don't want to, like, be a finger pointer and blaming, because that's going to put me into a really negative mindset, and there's already like a lot of negativity and a lot of fear around things. But even still, it's like, it is tough. It is scary. And it's trying to find the balance of what are the right things to put into place for myself.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you share a lot about your advocacy work that you do, but you're also super open online about your hair regrowth journey.
Yeah.
And, I think that's probably something that's a little bit stigmatized too. Like, you don't ever want to ask somebody like, oh, about their hair when they're going through cancer, but I'd like to hear it from your perspective.
Yeah, the hair was like one of the biggest things. And I always say, like, what happens, especially as women, to us going through cancer treatment, but breast cancer treatment is like, the physical manifestation of the outside is like how you kind of feel on the inside. And so, like, looking in the mirror was like awful. I didn't end up shaving my hair. I lost like, 95% of my hair. I had a little bit at the front, a little bit at the back, and the photos are online if you want to look it up. I wouldn't let anybody outside of like my parents see me like that. I had, this cute hat wig that I wore under cashmere hats. So that was kind of my saving grace. I hated my regular wig.
It's the difference between a hat wig and a other wig.
Yeah. So that regular wig is like a regular wig. And I got one based on my old hair. And I always had like the longest, thickest, billowing, perfect hair. And I was known for my hair and my eyebrows. Like, that was kind of my thing and was part of my identity.
Well, I feel like you must still now, because your hair is very thick and beautiful, and so are your eyebrows.
Thank you. So I feel more like myself, which is nice. Yeah, because I don't care what people say, like, oh, it's just hair, it's just this.
Yeah.
Like, it's not.
Okay.
It means a lot to other people, and it is actually one of the hardest parts for most women that I speak to.
Yeah.
Um, and so I like would not let anybody look at me. I lost most of my hair about like 17 days after my first chemo, like all out in the shower, like a horror movie. And it was right around Halloween too. It was awful, painful and awful. And then, progressively more came out, even though I was cold capping. Lost most of my brows and lashes.
Oh, wow.
And then had these like horrible chalazions on my face, which were these big giant, they're like styes that move up your lids, and because your body can't fight its own infections. And so like I looked like a mutant. I didn't look like myself. And looking in the mirror was like awful. And I just didn't even want anyone to see me. I have very few pictures from that time because I was like, I will never want to look at pictures of myself like this again. And so the fact that I started taking photos after I finished chemo and that now I'm posting them online is just such a 180 from where I was. And so after I finished chemo, every day I went to Florida, I recovered. My parents rent down there. And so I was lucky I was able to kind of take off to the warmth and spend 3 months down in Florida and take also mental health and a health break and no appointments, which like I really needed to just like be out of the environment and disconnect and just recover.
Yeah.
And so I every day would like look in the mirror and be like, is something growing? Is something growing? Mom, is something growing? Can you see anything? And my mom's like, listen, take a photo of your hair right now and just stop obsessing. And once a week, take another photo. And then every Saturday, take a photo. And so I started doing that. And from the first week even to the second, I saw a bit of growth. And from the second to the third, even more. And so that was so exciting that I started making collages and sending them to my close friends. And they called me the Chia Pet. And at the same time, like I was obsessively looking online for content of like, what's it going to look like this week? What's it going to look like this month? What can I expect? When is it going to be good? When is it going to be good? When am I going to be happy? It did take a long time for me to be happy with my hair. But I didn't love the content I was seeing online. Like it didn't, and I think women are putting out amazing content. I just didn't relate to it. And it didn't make me feel like hopeful or exciting. There was some content being taken by like women who randomly shaved their hair and did like a full like 12-month like regrowth. But then I was like, I'd watch them obsessively. Like there's this one video that like I'd watch over and over and over again because it's actually really good. But like I was still kind of just like, you chose to.
Yeah, it was cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just was like, you know what? When I'm ready, I'm going to post all this stuff. I'm going to take tons of videos. I'm going to create content that like helps other women kind of feel better and make it relatable, and make it feel like, okay, this isn't going to be like as bad as I thought. And I have like a very small following, but I do get like quite a few messages being like, your videos are really helpful. Like, this is what I'm looking at during my regrowth journey. And like, it's here and there. It's not that often, but I did get a really nice message from a girl on TikTok this morning who's in the States, and she lost her hair for other reasons. And she's just like, I love your videos. They're making me feel good. They're making me excited. I'm 10 months, out and whatever. And we're messaging back and forth. And I'm like, this is why I did this all in the first place. I don't think I expected to like share as much as I've been sharing. And I'm happy I did, because building community around this is really important. But what I also didn't realize about like starting a channel to create content is like, you need to keep creating content. And that's a lot of work, as you guys know, because you guys are very good at that. And so creating content, thinking of content is a lot of work.
And I think also it's hard creating content that feels authentic to who you are and reflects the stage of life and the things you're actually going through. That's hard to do. It's easy to create content for the sake of creating content.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And I want it to feel like
So I think that's an important difference, right? Because when you watch your content, when we see your content, it really feels authentic to who you are. Now that we know you, we know that that's truly reflective of who you are.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I try. Hopefully I'll be able to keep it up, and I'll see what that looks like. I think like now, I told you, it's been such a busy period between like work, which I do, and then advocacy. And so some things are going to end up having to drop off a little bit. And that's okay. If I post a little less content, that's fine. Or if it's more content and less of something else, like,
Yeah.
that's fine. I'll have to figure out what that looks like in the longer term. But definitely like getting those messages, I'm like, okay, like, it's resonating and it's helping. And really,
it's
I
having
just like,
impact.
yeah, and like, that's the reason I did it. It's just like, I wanted to help people make them feel better. Like, I felt so alone and so sad. And, um, helping somebody feel a little bit less isolated is a win.
Yeah,
Right.
regardless of if you have like tens of thousands of followers or you have like a couple hundred, as long as you're making an impact on at least like one person, I think that's such a win.
Exactly.
And you're obviously making an impact on more than one person. And, having those real life conversations with strangers online is so, empowering for yourself too, to be like, okay, yes, this is working. I'm going to continue doing this type of work and helping who I can.
The downfall of that, though, is because I'm like so open between LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok, like, people also like cross a line a lot and kind of feel entitled to ask me intrusive questions or, expect that I'll just like hop on a call and give time for everyone. Like, there is a sense of entitlement there and a weird kind of personal violation. And so
how do you handle
not everyone. It's hard because like every time I speak to somebody, it's an energy exchange. And so I have to be in a good place necessarily. And, I'm on like lots of meds. So sometimes like I do have a bad day and I might be up for something one day that might impact me a little bit differently. But I have now a good sense of like the way somebody emails or messages me and of whether that's going to look like, hey, I don't have time right now, but why don't you like text me your questions or send me your questions and I can do it that way. Like, and just put a barrier of like, I'm not going to, get on a call with everyone. Cause like, I also don't have time. Like, I have to do work and I want to, I've barely had time for myself and I have all the other things I need to, keep me centered as well as much as possible.
And yourself is so important now that you are in survivorship and you're not going through treatment like you were, like celebrating that you are healthy and here and being able to have all of those moments for yourself.
For sure. Yeah. I like started horseback riding, as I'm sure you guys have seen online because it's all I post. And that's just like been heaven. And it's just such a nice outlet. And I'm try to be as protective of that as possible. And even this month is just so crazy. I've had to miss 3 lessons in a row, which I really haven't done. And I had no choice. And so sometimes those trade-offs are there, but it's like, how do I minimize that? Because protecting that time and being able to get into nature and on a horse is like complete magic. And it's one of the best things I've found. And so making sure that I do carve out those windows for the things that I really need and that are kind of separate from the whole cancer world.
For sure. Robby, you touched on, this balance of your time between your work, your advocacy, and, managing also your personal time and finding those things that bring you joy, that feel meditative. Can we talk a little bit about your advocacy work? Because I think that I'd love to understand more around how intentional was it for you to become more of an advocate on your own behalf for other women like you? Was that something you thought about intentionally and then began doing that work? Was it something that happened kind of by chance? And what does that actually look like for you now?
So it was very intentional. It was part of my summer waiting for surgery, as I was speaking to as many people. I also always knew about Rethink Breast Cancer. They used to have the booby ball. I just knew of them doing good work for the young breast cancer community. And so I was connected to them because I said, hey, I'm just waiting around. I have all this government relations experience and public affairs and health and life science experience. Like, just bring me to a meeting. Like, I'm used to meeting with government. Like, there's a policy. Like, let me help you. And so actually the day before my mastectomy, I met in person for coffee with MJ, who is the founder and head of Rethink Breast Cancer. And we just had a really nice chat. And I was like, I want to help. I want to do all the things. And she's like, we want you to do all the things, but you need to get through treatment and you need to like see where you land. And she was like so lovely. She's like, you will be in this community. We are also here for you right now because we are your community. But just, take it easy on yourself. And of course, like, I'm recovering from surgeries. I'm trying to write a blog post already about my experience, which like they were like, let's just wait before you're publishing stuff. But I still got involved with a little bit of their work at that time. And it was intentional because I felt like, given my background and then this like crazy lived experience between my mom, my sister, and I was already learning so many lessons and I wanted to just help. And so got involved with them a bit. And then the other aspect was Creative Destruction Lab, which I had already always heard of because they had a NeuroStream, is this like amazing go-to-market program founded in Toronto, but it's international. And a former colleague was like, they have a new cancer stream funded by the Canadian Cancer Society. I think it would be great to get you in. So a few days after my first chemo, and I was just in the hospital with like a high fever. I was like super sick, but I was invited to their first session to speak about my patient experience and kind of see what mentors were there and provide some aspect of the experience. So I dragged myself there. I could only make it for like 2 hours out of like the 8-hour day. Spoke about my lived experience and then got involved kind of peripherally as I was up to it in that year. And that experience was what made me want to change my career, seeing the gaps between early innovators and the patient and the lived experience, and also investment decisions and the patient experience, and wanting to bridge the gap. And through them, I got involved with Canadian Cancer Society. That's how I met them. And I do advocacy with them as well. And sort of organically, I was like, I feel like I need to be doing advocacy as part of my career. It's really important. And then I also feel that I have the ability to help get lived experience involved in really early innovation and investment as well. And so I have been like gradually building that up over the course of now 2 years.
Wow.
Which has been really cool. But I knew right away I wanted to share my story at some point when it was right. And I knew that I wanted to use that lived experience to help drive change. And now having done that progressively, I see the impact that storytelling and the story has on creating context for change.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, policymakers meet with people all the time, but it is those stories that help them see why change really needs to matter or needs to happen.
Right.
And I do think it's impactful. And then we all need to be shouting from the rooftops if we feel comfortable about, what's unfair and what's going on to help create more change to do better.
Yeah. Yeah. The stories are what drive change and shift systems, which is what this podcast is really all about. And we commend you for sharing your story so loud. We are huge, cheerleaders for making sure that patients are paid for their voices as well. So do you ever have any trouble getting compensated for sharing your stories? Or do you ever feel like there's this like balance?
Imbalance.
Yeah, imbalance.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is an imbalance. Some are really good, some don't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard because a lot of, patient orgs are strapped and they need their community.
Yeah.
So it's a balance of like, where do I volunteer? What is like work? I see everything as the bucket of my career, but now it's also I have to refine going forward because I am working an insane amount right now just on my like work now. And then, just so many advocacy cancer things. And it's an extremely hard balance. And it is hard to get patients compensated. Like even in my work, I run into that issue too, trying to get patients compensated.
Yeah.
And the space in general, as you guys know, working in it, can be actually kind of competitive because historically there's been not enough funding for champions like us to get compensated and to get this type of work. And obviously we all need to work together. Nobody should duplicate efforts, but it's challenging. It's really, really hard. I think most things that are worth doing are really hard though too.
Totally.
So hopefully we can create like change for that and compensating lived experience, and showing that lived experience does have that value, right? Because it does have value to companies and to ventures. And so showing the values there just as much it is for a consultant or whoever they're going to pay, without batting an eye.
Right.
Yeah.
I think lived experience is an expertise,
Mm-hmm.
in the way that you describe it. And you said something else that really stuck with me, Robby, which was creating the context for change. Because I think what your lived experience and the lived experiences of others, what it really does is create that context, right? Without those stories, without understanding that expertise, we don't know what change will impact. So I think that that's a really important piece that I want people to understand. The same way that we value expertise of people we deem as experts because of their experience in academia or as healthcare providers, I think patients who have gone through experiences on different disease journeys, going through different healthcare experiences like yours, that is a form of expertise.
Absolutely. And I involving lived experience and early innovation as well. Like the context is there that like I believe lived experience should encompass all aspects of lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
So business experience, healthcare experience, like just the way that I've used all aspects of my lived experience. It's both like as a professional,
Right.
but also as a patient, and being able to combine those and knowing that, there's certain expertise that people have that is going to be even more impactful in certain contexts. And so context is always
Context is
creating
everything.
context
Yeah.
is everything, but also actual context too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What does the system look like for you now that you are in this survivorship phase? Like, we know that once you get the diagnosis and you're going through treatment, like you have this huge circle around you. But now that you're out of treatment and like you're in remission?
Yeah, like the weird thing about breast cancer, at least for me, it's like, you finish chemo and it's not like you get a scan or they look like they're sort of just like, okay, you're in adjunct therapy. And so,
Okay.
yes, I would say I'm in
Yeah.
remission in that way, but like, I don't know that I would call myself out of treatment until I'm off adjunct therapy.
Off the medication.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like a group of 3 different
Right.
meds. And I'm still like only 2 years into it. So I have another 3 to go.
Okay. So, but what does it look like for you? Like, are you still surrounded with that, like, care and those supports that you had before? Or does it
Yeah, I
look
mean,
different?
I'm there less. I'm happy I'm there less. I have access still to my oncologist and a survivorship doctor, so that's good. I see my plastic surgeon for checkups once a year. But you're on all these meds. There's not that much information. You don't feel well
Yeah.
a lot of the time. So that's tough. I've had to seek out a lot of my own support in terms of naturopaths or therapists just for support on managing the side effects of that, which is like, terrible sleeps, which I was always a bad sleeper, but it's like extra bad. And yeah, it's scatterbrain, ADHD, low energy, brain fog, like that type of stuff. So it makes like, getting to the desk and working or like really tough. Yeah, I don't feel like I wake up till like halfway through the day. So mornings are really hard. I was having some pain and I wanted scans, so that required some like quite a bit of pushing. And yesterday was just a total like shit show at Sunnybrook, which I won't get into, but lots of tears. And yeah, so it's still challenging because you're still navigating the system, but there is support there for sure. But it still requires a lot of self-advocacy. And that word advocacy just has so many different meanings.
Oh, yeah.
I remember you said that, and this was like a while ago when we were chatting, that it was difficult for you to find a good support group because a lot of the support groups that your doctors were referring you to were women who were a lot older going through breast cancer treatment and or they were in different phases of their life. And it's like, for you, somebody in their mid-30s, like young, going through it. Like, you haven't hit those specific phases of life yet. So have you found a group yet that you connect with, or is that something that you would also be open to kind of creating through your own work?
No, I do not want to create my own group right away. Especially after we did the menopause meetup and nobody came.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Which the day was still worth it, so I'm glad we did that.
Yeah.
Community meetups are not on our dock.
Guard, right? Because there's 3 and
Yeah.
there's no like real motive, or not, there's motivation, but there's not like that I've paid for a ticket, I need to go kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's totally fine. You guys were there, so it was good. And I met those other podcasters.
Oh, yes. Side note for those who are listening, it was the National Menopause Show, and we met Robby there. We were hoping to meet up with some other young oncology patients who had gone through menopause because of cancer treatment, and it didn't happen, but we're hopeful that we can make more awareness around it.
Yeah, and I knew it wasn't gonna happen. Like the day I was like, everyone that said they were coming bailed. Like, and for like very good reasons. It's just,
Right.
Anyway, I appreciate you guys helping facilitate that.
Good.
And based on like the content even from yesterday, the video, there's like a clear need for it, and I think if I wouldn't be doing meetup, but I think if there was kind of a roadmap for what it looks like at the show next year and more supports, that would be great. In terms of like community and what that looked like. So during treatment, yes, like the support groups that were available. Wellspring's amazing, but it was a lot of older women going through it, and it's just not the same. Like as somebody who is in childbearing years, fertility's impacted.
Yeah.
Going through a breakup, which was a whole other disaster. I just couldn't relate because somebody saying like, oh, my grandkids, and I'm like, I might not even be able to have kids or at least naturally. And so it's very different. Rethink, I found a lot of amazing community members that I've connected with who are in the same phases.
That's good.
They do the Sex and Body event, which is unbelievable. And so definitely met a lot of like-minded people there going through the same thing. And then through those fact-finding missions I've had, I guess, where I was connected with other women, I've made other friends in the cancer world who still friends, and we can message and talk, and they have advice. They're going through the same things. And so I've been able to build my own community, which is fantastic.
Yeah. It's good to pick and choose community.
Anyway. Yeah. And of course I have my sister, still different, she has my nephew who's amazing, but I think like our treatment trajectories look so different. Right. So during that time, it was just kind of separate. We were doing our own things because we both just want to get through treatment. But now also like she, very parallel, similar things. And so we're able to support each other as well, which is nice.
That's good.
Robby, when you think about designing more human-centered healthcare interventions or systems based on what you've gone through and what you still talk about and advocate for, where do you start? What in your, maybe we could have a whole episode about this, but what in your mind are the things that you feel are the most fundamental or important things that are just being overlooked today based on what you went through?
Let's just talk about unified health data, because this was part of my day yesterday. Like I had been having pain. I advocated heavily to get an ultrasound of my breasts because I'm having pain, and I'm sure it's just nerve pain, but it hurts. I just wanted to know.
Also, it's not just nerve pain.
Yeah, just nerve pain.
You don't need to downplay. Yeah.
No, it's not, but I'm just like, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to get it checked out. Doctor finally agreed. Like, they had no record that I had a mastectomy in reconstruction. But at the same hospital I had it at, like, I was treated at Sunnybrook, and there was no record in the breast imaging from the breast oncology clinic. And they're like, oh, you had that? I'm like, I had it at your hospital. They had no record of my chemo. They had no record of anything. I had to go through all these things. And it's like, it was an extremely frustrating process. I had to explain it to 3 different technicians and 3 different people why I didn't want to get a mammogram. Like,
and that's like very emotional and triggering too, right? You're like,
so invasive and intrusive.
I was crying. Like, I was hysterical yesterday. I actually like I filmed a reel on it, so I'm sure I'll have something eventually about it. But
Sort of do that.
yeah, and I'm just like, if my own hospital that I was treated at, the breast imaging is next door to my oncologist, like the breast cancer center, and like they are next door. They share hallways. Like if they can't get it together, like it makes me extremely frustrated. For Canadian linking, like Canadian interoperability, right? Like we talk about it all the time, but if my own hospital can't, how is it going to happen in Canada? Like it's so beyond anything. It's like I didn't even find out I had the appointment. I've been waiting like 2 months, and then I looked online. I see that there's an appointment, but usually I get an email notification. So I called them because I had to change the appointment. I'm like, why didn't you call me or notify me? And they're like, oh, we sent you a letter in the mail. And then I didn't realize.
Then did you say that?
Oh, and I was like, there's a Canada Post strike. So I got the letter on Friday. Like my appointment was Monday. And so it's like, these things are crazy. It's crazy. And so, yeah, like, I mean, you could dive into 5 different things there. So where do we begin? I don't know. But maybe just like having a unified record, having data follow us, making it easy so the patient doesn't constantly have to like re-give their history over and over again. And somebody doesn't remember, like when you've had as much like surgery and treatment, like even like I'm pretty good. Like I might forget something. Could you imagine like somebody else too?
Yeah. Like, yeah. It reminds me of, it's not the same experience, but it's similar in that I had just had our first baby and I'm on Zoloft for anxiety, and I was in for a couple extra days because, you know, they just monitor the baby if the mother has been taking the medication, right? And I'm at the hospital that my like family doctor is affiliated with, my OB's affiliated with, but none of the nurses had any record that I was on Zoloft. So that's scary. So then when I told them that I was on Zoloft, it was like this big like, oh my gosh, actually, well, we need to check. And are you sure you should take this? And then whenever there was a shift change with the nurse, they had to go through it again, and they had to like ask me 100 questions about like, did you just start Zoloft? I'm like, no. And it was just, why is that not in my records? And this is not something that I want to deal with right now. No. So yeah, unified health records and health records that us as patients and just people in general have access to without any red tape would be huge. It would be so nice to just be able to open it up on our phone without having to ask for access, without having, just like, yeah, I'm with you. 100% agree. That just, your story reminded me of that situation.
That was scary. Yeah.
Crazy.
I was at an event last week, and it's talking even about like, you know, pharmacy systems, and if people get like prescriptions filled at different places, then pharmacists don't know, you know, what conflicts.
Right.
So not having that unified as well poses a whole pile of issues, and, you know, a lot of adverse events can be coming from, you know, medications, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big one.
For somebody like you who has gone through cancer, like you're on a lot of medications.
Like too many. I remember having that. And they want to keep giving me more. And I'm like, I'm on my quota. Like, I would love to go on Vyvanse. Like, I would love to, because I like the ADHD part. And I'm like, I don't think I can go on Vyvanse. Like, I'm on like 8 prescriptions. I'm 30 years old now. It's a lot. Like, I don't think I have like, it's already a pharmacy, you know? It's just like, it's too much.
Yeah.
The other part would just be like, you know, and I'm doing this work with Canada Drug Agency as well, like creating a national framework for oncology biomarkers. And of course, that's like biomarkers, not necessarily like genomic profiling at large, but it plays a role. And the more we learn about cancer, the more it's like the profile of the cancer that matters more than like the location it's going to. And so my own ability, because I was on the borderline, I got access to a test called MammaPrint. A lot of women have Oncotype. It's, you know, kind of similar information. It's comprehensive genomic profiling, essentially, to understand like how aggressive the cancer is and what treatments would be beneficial, which is ultimately why I chose chemo, because I saw I'd have a relative risk reduction of 50% if I did that of recurrence. And so the more access to these tools that we can have for precision oncology and how and when these are implemented is extremely important. And so the more we can look at these tools, the more we could build local capacity for these tools will allow us to actually have targeted and effective treatment for the people that need it. So that's another area that I'm like extremely passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. Very we need people like you to have this passion.
Yeah, and I feel even more confident that agencies like the CDA and Creative Destruction Lab are actually seeking out experience and expertise from people like you, because it gives me confidence that decisions that they make, solutions they're implementing are going to be reflective of experiences like yours. So,
yeah, great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And Robby, we have loved this conversation so much. I think that all of your ideas about where to start, where to prioritize efforts from a health data perspective, we could dive into those, and hopefully we will at a future conversation. We've loved hearing your story. We want to recognize, how much we appreciate you being vulnerable and walking us through, what you went through over the past few years. And we feel so excited to watch you as you go through this next phase of your life and all the things you're impacting and being a part of. And we're so happy to have you.
And grateful, and we're just thankful that you've become a friend, and we love watching what you're doing and building and growing. So thank you for being here today.
And thank you for all the work you're doing for patients as well. I'm also really happy we connected and we're friends. Thank you. Thank you for having me.